Hey guys, welcome to class 6 of fundamentals. Today we're going to be working on finding and learning about non-case law sources of law, like constitution, statutes, regulations, and the like, and kind of how to just find them using our free internet sources because we do not have books to look through right now. So, anyway, our law in the United States, we don't just have case law and common law, we also have written down laws like our constitution, statutes, regulations, and local laws like ordinances. So, what happened? Oh, okay. So we have for our constitution, you can look at, I have on the, oh, never mind. It's the Supreme Law of the United States of America. I always ask that. What is the Supreme Law of the United States of America? Is the United States Constitution. Our purpose, it establishes our government. It gives us the framework. How will we govern ourselves? How will our country work? In a simple state, what it does is it gives powers to the government. It limits powers of the government, and it sets out the rights of the people. You can find it codified in the U.S. Code, and it's indexed with the code. And then there are annotations with that as well. Annotations, I don't know if I've used that term before, but an annotation for a code section, you have the text of the code in a book, and then afterwards you have little case notes that explain how a case has interpreted that statute. So those are annotations. Those are only going to appear in publishers' versions of codes. So if you're looking it up at the free internet, you're not going to get these annotations, but it's a way to help you research statutes. So if you're looking at a code section and then you look at these annotations, you can see how courts have interpreted a term and help you with your research. And I'll show you what they look like, I think, later on in this lecture. Okay, so we can find it in the code itself if we had the books for the U.S. Code, but we don't. But we can also find them in paid databases like the Constitution, in paid databases like Lexis or Westlaw, on federal government websites like gpo.gov, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then to find it in a book, you would go to the index section of the U.S. Code and look for the constitutional sections. Oh, here's where I talk about what annotations are. Annotations are explanations or interpretations through notes and case summaries. So it tells you kind of what a code section, how it's been interpreted. So I think if we go to my Hamey's book, where is, why am I on? Here it is. Okay, page 107, 108 here. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like in a book. Okay, so the preamble of the United States Constitution. And that's the first section of our Constitution. And in our supplemental videos, there's a little video about the preamble of the Constitution and what it says. And you can sing along to it from Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, so this is, if I were looking at this in the U.S. Code annotated, I would have the preamble. Then it gives me these down here are what we call the annotations. Okay, so they're little notes of decisions. So these are cases that have interpreted this section of the Constitution. Now, the preamble is not really ever at issue. That's why you look, all of these cases are very old. But kind of that's how it looks. So what does we the people mean? And these cases have interpreted what we the people mean. And forming a more perfect union, those cases have interpreted what form a more perfect union is. So when you look at a code section, like in a book, you're going to have the code section, and then you're going to have, maybe these are little editorial enhancements, and then you might have some historic notes where it's been amended or repealed or changed. If it's a statute, obviously the constitutional preamble hasn't been, but then you'll have these annotations. Okay, little blurbs from cases that interpret what these sections mean. Okay, so that is how it kind of looks. But our Constitution, the supreme law of our land, has the preamble, then it has the articles, and then it has amendments. And you should note that the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. Okay, so amendments are where the Constitution has been changed or added to by our Congress. So that's what amendments are. But the first 10 are the Bill of Rights, and those were added pretty much at the time, right when the Constitution was passed. Okay, so Article 1, here's our articles. The first one creates our legislature. I don't know why I always have a hard time pronouncing that. Our legislative branch, our Congress, which has our House of Representatives, and our Senate. It has the powers and all sorts of things. So, what's going on literally today as I tape this lecture talking about this impeachment trial all comes from Article 1 of the Constitution. Okay, Article 2 is the executive branch. So the powers and the limits of the executive branch, the president, and the checks and balance, the checks on the other branches. So the legislature makes the laws, the executive signs the laws and can veto a law proposed by Congress. Congress has the right to make the laws. It has the right to change the Constitution through amendments, and it can impeach and potentially throw the executive out of office. It also, and the executive appoints members to the judiciary, Article 3, and through the advice and consent of the legislature. So they're all kind of interwoven, and they're meant to be checks on each other. Okay, so those are our three branches of the government: legislative, executive, judiciary. Article 4, full faith and credit, which says that states are to give full faith and credit to the laws of other states. So, for example, if I'm married in Illinois, that is recognized in Nevada. If I have a driver's license in Wisconsin, that is recognized in Puerto Rico. So the full faith and credit of the laws within each other's states. Article 5 is the procedure for making amendments. Article 6 provides that this United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And Article 7 talks about ratification of the Constitution, which you only have to do once. Okay, and amendments 1 to 10 are the Bill of Rights, the other amendments 11 to 27. So constitutional research is super cool. It's kind of highbrow. You need to know when you're doing constitutional research what specific text in the Constitution that you're researching. So say, due process or cruel and unusual, the prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment. I need to know where that's coming from. So that text is pretty like mushy, right? You don't know what does due process mean? So when you're doing constitutional law, what you're really doing is you have your Constitution, but the law is usually case law interpreting these words, phrases, sections of the U.S. Constitution. So when you're doing constitutional law research, you will always be doing case law research. So Constitution has been interpreted to include rights that were not specifically itemized in the original Constitution. So cases and courts have interpreted the Constitution and what the framers would have meant, and how societal changes have mandated that the Constitution be changed. Be interpreted, not changed. That's amendments. If you want to find the Constitution on the internet, here for free, because we don't have books, we can go to, this is a great site, the Cornell Law School Legal Information Institute site. I think it's law.cornell.edu. So this is a free educational site, which has a lot of the primaries laws on there. So if we want to get laws, here we can go, here, look, Constitution. Okay, and here is all our second sections of the Constitution, right? We have our preamble, our articles, our amendments, and then they have explanations, which is pretty cool too. So say we're, I want to see impeachment if they have that in here. That would be under the, okay, here, impeachment. So I'm going to go to explanation. Person subject to impeachment. So that's, you're watching this a few weeks later, but this is what's going on today. Judges would be any officer of the government from his post. So a bad officer sheltered by the president, even against the will of the president, judges, military officers, civil officers. So impeachment, it does not just have to be used against the president. So this is kind of cool. It's got your own little quasi in annotations in here. So say if we go to Clinton, and then it has little footnotes with cases, or, oh, that's the congressional record. So different sites. So that is one way to find the Constitution on the internet. You can always go to the U.S. Government Publishing Office, which is USGPO or gpo.gov. And in there, sorry, I'm talking fast, gpo.gov, the way you find the law, so this is everything that the U.S. government publishes. So you've got law, but you've also got pamphlets and tax forms and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so what we do from the GPO site, we go to explore and research, and down here we go to govinfo.gov. So govinfo.gov. Okay, so look what we can search here. All sorts of good stuff. This Code of Federal Regulations, the congressional record, the U.S. Code. So if I go to the U.S. Code here, here's my U.S. Code. Here, it's my Congress, my president, bankruptcy, all of my sections of the U.S. Code. So I can do it that way. Another way I can do that is I wanted to find the Constitution. I'm going to just go A to Z here. And then when I go to C, Constitution of the United States of America. And this one has analysis and interpretation as well, which I want. That's a supplement. I don't want the supplement. I want the edition. So I think I want the 2017 edition. And it's a PDF when I pull it up. And it has not only just the text of the Constitution, but then it has cases that have interpreted the Constitution periodically. So these supplements have updated cases because the text of the Constitution banning an amendment is not going to change. Your annotations are what will change. Where's my PDF? Come on, Adobe. Open, open, open. It's thinking about it. I don't know why my price line is up. Go away, price line. I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, okay. So these are the parts of it. Maybe just so here is my actual text of the Constitution. Here's my amendments. These ones have analysis, which will have new case notes and really super helpful for research. Okay, so that's using gov.info to find the Constitution. Illinois Constitution. So Illinois Constitution, state constitutions cannot give you fewer rights than the federal Constitution, but they can actually give you more. So the Illinois Constitution is the supreme law of the state of Illinois, subject only to federal laws, right? So they can give you broader rights than the U.S. Constitution, and then they have, this is how you cite to it, ILCS Constitution, Article 6, Section 6, well, whatever article or section you're talking about. So this is just a link out to the Illinois General Assembly page, ilga.gov, and here's the Constitution of the United States, of the state of Illinois. So one thing that might be helpful to show you how you can actually get more laws. So if I go to the Bill of Rights here, so the due process and equal protection, we've heard of that, religious freedom, freedom of speech, right to assemble, are all parts of, our Constitution. But look at this, rights, crime victim rights, that doesn't appear in the U.S. Constitution. So that's different. No imprisonment for debt, eminent domain. Well, I guess that's part of the U.S. Constitution as well. So anyway, it can give you more rights than the federal Constitution if the Illinois Constitution sees fit. So that's our Illinois Constitution. Okay, so we've gone through constitutions, our federal and our state one. Then we talk about statutory law. So statutory law is made by our elected representatives, our legislature. We can have statutory law made on the state level, federal level, and municipal, or your town, whatever your local level is. And statutory law is there are rules that apply to everybody, right? Society in general, rather than to two parties in a case law type dispute. So we have our traffic code, we have our criminal code, we have immigration laws, corporate laws, tax laws, all sorts of things like that would be encompassed in our statutes. So for federal law, our federal statutes are codified in the U.S. Code. For the books, if we're looking at the official U.S. Code volume, that would be, I didn't really want to do that. That would be the USC, okay, U.S. Code, and we would find that on something like the Government Publishing Office. And if we're looking at the U.S. Code, we're not going to have annotations to that because the federal government isn't in the publishing editorial enhancement type business. So that is the U.S. Code. Then you have, what's going on? U.S. Code annotated. Okay, so that's the U.S. Code with annotations, and that is put out by West Publishing. And then we have the U.S. Code Service, which is another publisher type volume of it. USCS, U.S. Code Service, and that is with Lexis, is the publisher. So should I show you? I think here, where's my red shelf? Okay, so statutory law, it's law enacted through the legislative process, whatever the congressional rules are. Maybe you usually have two houses. And that what okay, I want to actually show you the U.S. Code sections. Okay, so here's our U.S. Code, and they're organized by topic, or they call them titles. So Title 7 would be agriculture. Title 16 would be conservation. Okay, the topics have numbers and they're called titles. I thought we were going to have, no. I want to go to page 117. Let's try that. Okay, so this is what a page in the U.S. Code would look like. Okay, so you have, right, what is this? 13 USC 241, right? Chapter 13 or Title 13, USC for U.S. Code, Section 241 is on conspiracy against rights. So here is my code section. These are my kind of historical notes, what's happened to this statute through time, any amendments, and you'll see there's no annotations because what are we in? We're in the U.S. Code, so they don't have editorial enhancements. Okay, then now this is the U.S. Code Service, the one put out by West. Okay, so here, 18, you cited 18 USCS, section 242. So the text of the statute will be the same, but then we'll have additional things, right? So you still have your historical notes, but then you have your annotations, right? Your interpretive notes and decisions. So these cases, these little case notes have interpreted section 242 of 18 USCS to see what they mean. So when you're like, oh, I'm interested in deprivation of rights under the color of law, what that means. Like, well, let's see how cases have treated it. So you look at these annotations. What am I specifically interested in? What are the elements of the crime, or, what are the parts? Let me see if they have do we have a U.S. Code? No. Okay. So that's kind of what it looks like in the book. Okay, so you have the text of it, and then you're going to have your historical notes on what's happened to the statutory section through time, and then in the volumes where a publisher is associated with it, you're going to have those annotations, and those annotations will be helpful for you in furthering your research. Okay, so how are laws made? Here we can go and look at that other supplemental video I posted. If you guys haven't seen it before, if you didn't grow up in the United States, you might not have seen that I'm just a bill video, but it's a lot of fun. And if you did, maybe it'll be a nice reminder of your childhood. But what happens is you have a piece of legislation which is proposed, and they call that a bill. And if it is proposed in the Senate, it starts with S period bill, or if it's proposed in the House, it's HR bill, House of Representatives, and then it's given a number. And if you were searching to see how that bill progressed into law, you use those bill numbers. It's called a legislative history, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay. So say it's a Senate bill. The bill goes to committee. These people on these different committees, say you're in the education committee and it's an education bill. They make changes, they make edits, they have meetings, they have hearings, they have all sorts of things to decide if this text of the bill is the best language to use, and it's exactly what we want to do. Okay. And then they come up with a final version of the bill. Okay. And then if it's a Senate bill, it's voted on in the Senate. If it approves, then it goes to the House, back in committee, change, alter, whatever. Then it's voted on in the other. Sometimes it's a joint committee. So you don't have any more changes after it's voted on once. And then if it passes both houses, it goes to the executive. their president. They either approve it or veto it. If they fail to do either, they call that a pocket veto, which I think it still comes in. Yeah, if it's not signed, it doesn't go into law, but they're not actually vetoing it. So watch your just a bill veto for that. There's also another link on the. So here on these, this is from the legislative process, which is on the congress.gov site, with a little video on the legislative process, not so cutesy as just a bill for you guys to look at. Okay, so our law has been passed by both houses. It has been signed by the president. How does it get published? How do we, as legal professionals find it? Okay, so there are two kinds of laws. There's a public law or a private law. Public law affects everyone, and they appear then eventually in the United States Code. The private laws, they are not in the U.S. Code. It only affects one person. Maybe it's, some sort of like a pardon or a granting of, not immunity, what I'm talking about, giving a refugee status in, the United States, giving them asylum. That's the word I was looking for. So those are private laws. Public laws, private laws. So we really are only concerned with public laws here. Okay, and so it's passed. They call that a slip law. Okay, so it's passed, but it doesn't have a number. It does not have a way to cite it in the U.S. Code. So they call that a slip law. And it is published in what is known as pamphlet publication. So a soft-covered publication, but in reality, it's just, online in a virtual thing, but it doesn't have a number yet. And then that's published in what we call the statutes at large. So this is a publication of all the laws passed by Congress in chronological order, not by topic. So if you want to, hey, what happened on, January 22nd, 1972, you can look at the statutes at large and you can see if any statutes have been passed by Congress on that day. Okay, and then after a while, they give it a number and they codify it and organize it into the U.S. Code, and it's given a number. And the U.S. Code, they are organized by topic. So when we're looking at a book, say we have a book section of the U.S. Code, there may be new laws and from our bound version. And if we want to find if laws have been changed or new laws have been passed, we always have to go into the back and look in our pocket part section of our code books to see if there's any additions to the statutes when we're doing research. Remember the pocket parts, those additions? That's what they are. Okay, so our code book, again, it'll be arranged by topic. Like I was showing you, oops, not here, which, can be also called titles. So even both state and federal, the codes will be, here's our private laws. Yeah, that's the statutes at large if you're interested. I've never used the statutes at large in my life, but that's kind of how that looks. Why do I keep jumping? I think I went 118. 118. Let's see what happens there. Pi. Oh, there it is. Okay, so these are our topic sections for the U.S. Code. Now, on the right, we haven't really talked about regulations yet, but, the code sections are put out by Congress. The federal regulations are put out by federal agencies, and they have their own titles or organizational numbering as well. So these are the corresponding numbers of the Code of Federal Regulations, which you would search for agencies. Okay. So one of the things when we're doing statutory history, we're trying to figure out what the lawmakers intended when they passed this code section. Legislative intent. Okay, courts give very, very heavy weight to what they think the lawmakers meant for this law to do when they passed it. Legislative intent. So one of the ways that courts try to figure out what the legislative intent was is to look at what we call legislative histories. Okay, so like I was looking at the little sections here with our history here, right? So this is the history. It was public law, what happened. You can get those numbers and then go back and find out what happened in Congress. And that's called a legislative history. So say I'm on congress.gov and I want to go to legislation. If I put in, say, all right, let's try HR. I'll just give you one. Here's a bill. And this will tell you the actions of this bill and what's happened. And so there's been 2 actions. And then you can look at that, and maybe there's hearing testimony, maybe there's different votes or things like that, and you can see what happened. And that would be your legislative history. So it's something that is helpful if you are trying to determine legislative intent. Okay, I'm backed up. All right, so this is code books, the code sections. Which we had, the Title 18, Section 242. We looked at that already, that under the color of law on, what would we on, like page 117 or something in the, 116, 117 in the textbook. When you're blue booking, so say I was doing Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code, just to show you here. I mean, maybe I'll go in here and I'll just, so I can type it in here. So if I was if I was doing Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code, it would be 18 U.S.C. And then the section symbol, which I just do insert symbol and find the section symbol, which is here. If you can't find it, you can just do a lowercase x, S, and 242. And then in our parentheses, this is U.S. Code. U.S. Code does not have a publisher. So then I would do the date. Okay, so the date is the date of publication. So if I'm looking at this in, the U.S. government publishing office, the date of publication is the date that I'm looking at it. So here I would do that. Okay, and that would be my citation. If I was looking at the U.S. Code Annotated, which is published by West, here I'm just going to copy. And I would put West. Now, if I was looking at a book, West book, I would have to then find the copyright date of the book, because that would be the version of the book that I'm looking at. If I was looking at it on Westlaw, which is a current version, it would be the current year. So that's the year of publication, not the year it was enacted, not the year it was amended. So same thing for U.S. Code Service. And we had Nexus. Okay, so that's how you cite to it in Blue Book form. Differently than the case law, in statutory law, you don't have to cite to the official report. You cite to whatever you're looking at. So whichever one of these versions you're looking at, that is what you cite to. All right, so that's code books. Okay, so our legislative history, what did they mean when they enacted the statutes? The courts look to it kind of heavily as persuasive authority. They look at different bill drafts, changes, transcripts of committee meetings, or congressional debate. You can use congress.gov for that. There's legislative history options on Lexis and Westlaw. The congressional record, which you can also find on here. So if I go to govinfo.gov, one of the publications I can search is the congressional record. Congressional record is a publication which lists everything that has happened in Congress on a given day. It's published every day that Congress is in session. So if we want to know what has happened recently, so in 2021, say I want to know what happened on January 28th, I'll just go to the Daily Digest so you can, it's a summary of what happened. Okay, measures introduced. Pete Buttigieg was nominated. All that fun stuff. Just a general summary of what happened, but then you can go to the detailed ones by the House. So that's the congressional record. Whoops, don't want to go there, into my email. Okay, so U.S. Code. I showed you this, what they look like. U.S. Code annotated, U.S. Code service, annotations. Okay, we did that. Remember to always look at the pocket part in the back for each of your code books. Need to check them to make sure that they haven't been changed. Sorry, I paused a second so I can show you a picture of what our state code looks like. Okay, so these are random volumes that I pulled out from our library that was in our lab. Okay, so in our state statutes, they are called the Illinois Compiled Statutes. Illinois Compiled Statutes Annotated is what we have in the book, published by West. And you'll see they're organized by section, right? Title. So 720 is criminal, 735 is civil procedure, 820 employment. So I randomly pulled them. They would be in, actual order. And at the end of these, there is like an index. So you can go to the back and say, I want to look up something about assault or something in the index. Or if you know that, say that's in criminal, you go to the front of the criminal section. You'll look for, it'll be like an index or a table of contents that tells you what the assault section is. And then you can go to the specific section. So that's kind of how you find a statutory section using the book. And in the back of the book, of course, you would have a pocket part. I also, if I could make, this may take a second. I hope it doesn't take too long. This is kind of this isn't exactly what it would look like, but this little soft cover book, this is a like a pamphlet addition to the case law, Illinois decisions. So this would be the pamphlet publication for like a public law. So it'd just be out in a little paperback version. It would look something like that. Okay. All right. Okay, our state statutes, they call the slip laws, they would call session laws. They were, what laws were enacted in a specific session of the state legislature. For us, we had the Illinois Compiled Statutes, like I just showed you that. That photo. Now to cite this, it would be, like just like this, 735 ILCS 5/2-615, and then, your publisher and your date in the parentheses. So again, if you're looking at a book, you look for the copyright date. If you're looking at it online, you give the current year. Local ordinances, and I think I have in the classwork some assignments on local ordinances, but that's ordinances, laws put out by your local area, your municipality, your township, whatever that would be. You can find them in local libraries. Usually you just go to the town website. So Palatine, their website will have their code of ordinances on it. Which this is an old link, but in the classwork, I don't know if it's the classwork or homework that I can't remember if it was classwork or the homework that I gave you this, but you go to the Palatine Code of Ordinances and you can find it, and it's by topic. And this one you really just have to search either by topic or by word. So if I wanted something about beekeeping, I type it in the search box there. And this is the section on animals, which is a PDF. So it's not as easy to use as some of these other websites. It's a little clunky. But if I want to find beekeeping, I can either just scroll down and find it, or I can use Control F on my computer for Control Find, type in beekeeping, and then it will jump me to so there's my section on beekeeping. So I need fencing, I need the location, all that fun stuff. So local ordinances will have things like, do I have to have a fence around my swimming pool? If I'm a business, what kind of signage can I have? Can I have an electronic sign? Can I ride a bicycle on a sidewalk? Is there a curfew? Can I park on the street overnight? All sorts of things. Those would be rules of your local ordinance, of your local township, your municipality. And you would find them on the website of the municipality that you live in. All right, I'm going to pause this video here so I can take a breath, and you can go to the bathroom or something because this is getting too long.